Today's topic is Chapter 4, Whole Language Approach in Teaching Reading. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to identify the skills required to become successful readers, explain what is the whole word approach, discuss the underlying principles of the whole word approach, and demonstrate how the whole word approach is adopted in the classroom. Young children require a variety of skills to become successful readers. But how to become successful readers? Reading experts have identified 6 specific literacy skills which become the building blocks for later reading and writing. The skills are vocabulary, print motivation, print awareness, narrative skills, letter knowledge, and phonological awareness. Let's look at the first one, vocabulary. Vocabulary relates to words or names of things. Most children should have between 3,000 to 5,000 words when they join school. How can parents help? They can help children to increase their vocabulary by reading different kinds of books with them and by naming all the things the children in their own world. Second, print motivation. This refers to a child's interest in and has the love for books. A child who likes books enjoys being read to, play with books, ask to be read, pretend to read, or write and enjoy trips to the bookstores and libraries. Parents can encourage this literacy skill by having shared book reading at bedtimes, making books available, or probably starting a mini library at home. Third, print awareness. It gives the children the awareness that writing in English follows some basic rules like writing from top to bottom and left to right. Parents can encourage this awareness by pointing out and reading words on signs, labels, signages, menu, or at anywhere possible to the child. Fourth, narrative skills. Being able to understand and tell stories and describe objects or happenings are important for children being able to comprehend what they are learning to read. If a child is able to tell what happened on a picnic outing, the child has acquired a certain level of the skills. This is one way the parents can do to strengthen the child's narrative skills. We move on to the 5th skill, letter knowledge. This knowledge includes learning that letters have names and they differ from one another. It means specific sounds go with specific letters. Parents can assist children to develop this skill by using various fun reading and writing activities. The last skill, phonological awareness. This awareness is the ability to hear or listen and manipulate the smaller sounds in words. Some children who find reading difficult are children who encounter problems in phonological awareness. So, how can parents help? Parents can strengthen this awareness by playing a lot of fun word games with the child, like reading poems and making up silly words. The whole word or sight word approach was born in late 1930s because it was found that in the mid-1920s and 30s, many children in the States of America were struggling to learn to read. Here, in this approach, children could be taught to recognize whole words by sight. It is believed to be more interesting and motivating. The list of the most frequent words in the English language were introduced and developed and taught first to young learners. Words such as the, and look in the list of words is displayed on all over the walls and the little reading books. Some of the famous of these early reading books were known as the New Basic Readers or the Dick and Jane Readers, originally published in 1941. In this series, there are the 2 main characters created by Zena Sharp and written by William Gray to teach children to read. These readers were used in the United States of America and other English-speaking countries for nearly 4 decades. In the series, Jane, Dick, and their younger sister became the household words at that very time. Why use whole word approach? It was believed that once children learned to recognize the frequent words by sight, teachers were to teach children to discover how the sounds and letters within known words worked. By then, the children could gauge the unknown words. This approach was concurred by Rietzel and Kutter in 2005. They stated that once a whole word was recognized, the parts of the word could be studied to determine how the parts contributed to the whole. This approach is a method of teaching children to read by recognizing words as whole pieces of language. They use meaning-focused reading skill. Phonemic awareness is a component of this approach. In this approach, learners are taught to recognize core words as a whole word instead of sounding all words phonetically. It uses literature as a teaching tool. It aims to integrate literacy with all parts of the curriculum. This approach asks learners to use reading and writing for daily purposes and not just for learning to read and write. Whole language approach is a variation of the whole word approach to teach reading. It is a theory of language instruction that was developed to help young learners learn to read. The characteristics of this approach include classes are full of printed materials, posters of learners' work adorn the walls and bulletin boards. One corner of the classroom is converted into a library that has a variety of books. In this approach, teachers and researchers believe that learners would learn to read as naturally as they had learned to speak. The central unit of meaning, that is a sentence, was taught to be the smallest meaning for teaching children to read. Goodman in 1986 stated that reading is a psycholinguistics guessing game, where readers have to guess the shapes of the letters and the sounds they make, phonetics, meanings of words, semantics, how the words make sense based on the grammar, syntax, and the function of the word, pragmatic. Reading and writing, according to Goodman, is considered as wholes learned by experience and exposure. Readers use these four systems when learning reading. There are orthographic and phonological, syntactic, semantic, and pragmatic. Goodman's theory has been criticized by other researchers who prefer a phonic-based approach. The following are further principles underlying the whole word approach. Number 1. The goal of reading is to be able to read quickly and without hindrance with good comprehension. When children are able to read words quickly and focus on the meaning of each word, reading becomes a comfortable and enjoyable activity. During reading and learning to read, language is processed from the whole to the parts. Point 4. Learning to read is based on the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Learning to read is accomplished naturally and holistically through immersion in print-rich and language-rich environments. Repetition in reading is focused on practicing phrases, sentences, or stories repeatedly until the text elements are internalized. Language stimuli in beginning reading materials are not controlled but represent naturally occurring patterns of language. Learning how to read stories, phrases, or sentences is assumed to lead to a perception of the parts and their relationship to the whole text and meaning. Repeated readings of authentic books of interest with help or without help are assumed to lead to an ability to read fluently with comprehension. Other principles include mistakes are seen as positive indicators of learners' willingness to take risks. Having a large oral language base gives learners access to printed language. And understanding text provides access to new vocabulary words and increases insights into how the sound symbol system works for decoding unknown words. If you choose to use the whole word approach, these are the steps that you can implement. See the word, say it, point out the salient or most important feature, highlight the look of the word, use it, define it, write it. One way of implementing the whole word or whole language approach is to use the flashcards. Create a series of flashcards that show one-syllable words like the, my, we, she, cat, good, and the like. Show the flashcard to the child, say the word, and the child is expected to remember. So whenever he sees the same word cat, he is able to recognize immediately without having to say it out, unlike in the phonics method. This method or approach involves a lot of discussion about what is going to be read before the actual reading starts. Ask the child to predict what the story is about by studying the topic or the title and the pictures. This method encourages the child to guess the unfamiliar words using the context and pictures he sees as clues to the word meaning. What are sight words? They are often also called high-frequency words. Sight word list was developed by Edward Dodge in 1936. The Dodge words are the 220 most frequently found words in books that children read. Many of these words cannot be sounded out because they do not follow decoding rules, so they must be learned as sight words. Sight words are commonly used words that young children are encouraged to memorize as a whole by sight, so that they can automatically recognize these words in print without having to use any strategies to decode. These words account for a large percentage of the words used in beginning children's print materials. It is about 75% of the whole words. There's this ongoing debate, which is the best way to teach a child to read, the phonics method or the whole word method. Let's go through the pros and the cons of the whole word method next. These are the pros or the advantages of a whole word method. Children need to recognize whole words to become fluent readers. Children can learn to recognize any word using this method. More emphasis on meaning and comprehension and less emphasis on phonics or individual sounds. Toddlers seem to enjoy learning to read by reading. Children show higher reading levels than children learning phonics. Now, let's look at the cons or disadvantages of whole word method. In this method, children cannot read when they face with words that have not been taught. Children are limited to reading books that contain words they have memorized, which is not good. Children may fail to memorize massive number of whole words as abstract symbols.